Hey, so it's release day for Queen's Park, my EP, with my quintet. Thad Bailey Mai on trumpet, Nebu Johannes on trombone, Madeline Elkins on guitar, and Miles Wong on drums, me on electric bass. We recorded it last year at Monarch Studios, October 2023, with Dave Sekula, who also mixed it at his own studio, Demitone. It was mastered by Brock McFarlane at CPS Mastering. That all came together earlier this year. I put it out this year, right now, today. This band showed up as a fully formed thing because I got the opportunity to play a show in New West. And I'm here in New West right now on release day, which is crazy. It's funny how things align like that, you know? I'm just walking down a block that I've walked down tens of thousands of times, more than any other block I've ever walked down in my whole life, because this is the block between 22nd Street SkyTrain Station. Those who know me know that I don't have a car and I'm all in on transit, and I always have been for my whole life. And 22nd Street SkyTrain Station and the house that I grew up in. So this block feels like more like home to me than anywhere else in the whole world. So it's crazy that I'm here now and that I released this music today that was born from a concert in New West at the Bernie Legg Theater in Queen's Park, hence the title, and that it closes a chapter of my musical life and of just my life in general that began with my first album, Aim to Stay. Of course, that composition is the third track on this 3-track EP, Queen's Park, so it's interesting, right? Something's good. I wonder what's happening there. Are there any coincidences? I had to stop there because one of my favorite neighborhood cats that I've been seeing for years showed up and I had to go pet him. I don't know what I'm going to say here. I didn't plan it out, but I know that this is the time to talk about this because I'm here. I'm here in this place. I will always remember this podcast conversation I had with Biboye Onanuga, the drummer from Edmonton, and we talked about how you can be motivated in your artistic process by people or by place or by purpose. And, you know, you could interrelate all three of those things. There aren't hard boundaries between them, but that made me realize that so much of my compositions for my music that I put out is from place, which surprised me. But this is the place here in New West that this whole chapter is about. And I'm closing a chapter here with putting out this EP. And it began 10 years ago now, over 10 years ago now, around October 2014, when I had already left Kaplan University's jazz program as a student formally, but I was still coming back, and I had some experiences there that really kind of affected me and hit me at a time when I was vulnerable. I got booked to play this gig downtown. That was one of the biggest gigs I had played so far. I was 19 years old and I was drinking a lot. I was abusing alcohol. I started doing that over the last 12 months or so, and I'm definitely not the only musician or arts type who has done that, but that's where I was at the time, having dropped out of university, feeling like I had all the freedom in the world, feeling like I could get away with things. And I went to play this gig and it went really badly for multiple reasons, and I felt very ashamed of it. And then maybe more than a month, less than 2 months after that, in November of 2014, I got to go to like the greatest concert, the most impactful concert in jazz music in my life that I had ever been to. I got to attend and I got to hear, and it inspired me to write a bunch of music. I talked about that in the Rhythm Changes podcast episode with Chris Fraser, where I was a guest. I talk a little bit about these experiences in 2014, at the end of the year, and that's where I wrote all the music for my first album, including the title track, Aim to Stay. And so it kind of came from a negative experience, and I was walking down this block a couple times a day, right where we are right now, and I was feeling that. And this is where it's kind of weird to talk about, and like it makes sense that there's some things where, you know, the way that you talk about them is by making music and that's it, and there isn't really anything you can add to it by saying words. But everybody has things where they feel guilty of them, or they feel ashamed of them, or they don't know what to do about, or they're kind of carrying with them things where you don't know how to talk about it, or you don't know how you're ever going to get over it, or how you're ever going to get away from it and find some air to like live your life and grow up and stuff. And that's what that was like when I was writing that music. And so then I record in 2015 the first half of what would become the first album, Aim to Stay. And then I record the second half in 2016. And I write this tune called Aim to Stay. And really, one way I could kind of generally describe what that tune means is like there was something I was trying to get over or get out of, escape or get away from. But I also didn't want to lose it all, if you know what I mean. Like it's hard to describe, but there was something that I had been feeling, something I had been dealing with, and I didn't want to let it go, but I also had to let it go. But you also didn't want to lose it. Yeah, it's hard to describe, but it was causing a negative thing on my life, and I needed to change, but I also needed to not just like melt away and disappear, you know? This is what I was thinking about when I wrote all that music initially, and when I had those recording sessions that ended up being my first album. It's also what I was thinking about when I was doing my second album, maybe eventually. And there were other EPs that came along the way too, where the music I was writing was definitely in this continuum as well. It was motivated by the same stuff. But the second album was around me quitting alcohol, because when COVID started, I started drinking more again after I had kind of gotten into a better place with it. And I was lonely in this period. I felt like I had fallen away from some of my friends who I really wanted to spend time with, and I didn't have people in my corner around me, but like it was because of me, because I wasn't staying in touch with them, and I didn't know what to do, and I was like nervous and anxious. And so the second album music is kind of about me surviving that time, and then I put it out after it's done, like after I went sober, and you know, the sessions were right before that. So the first album, this emotion that I was feeling was like just coming into its first peak of intensity when the first album was written, and then the second album was like I was kind of in the lonely bottom of it. And one of my EPs in the middle of that time, I recorded Aim to Stay again. I re-recorded it with the same musicians, with Thad on trumpet and Johnny Tobin on piano and Carson Toro on drums. I re-recorded it. I had recorded it when I was 21. I re-recorded it when I was 24 as like a reaffirmation of like I'm still on this journey, and it's in the midpoint of this chapter that we've ended up finishing right now. And so now I had that concert in Queen's Park that was so lovely with these musicians who had been with me the whole way. Even before that, even before the time frame that we're talking about right now, I had played with Thad and Nebu and Madeline and Miles. And I had this concert with them, and we came up with this new arrangement of Aim to Stay that we played as a trio. And so now I put that out. So there's this version of Aim to Stay that I've recorded at 28 now, this third and final version. And, you know, Aim to Stay is track 1 on my first album, and it's the last track on this Queen's Park EP, and so I made it. That feeling that I'm talking about throughout all that music, I wrote all this music about, it's over. I completed it, I survived it, and I made it. And that's what I mean when I say that I'm closing this chapter here. And I just walked down this block that I call home more than any other place in the world, and that's what I'm thinking about right now on release day. So it's not a tidy story here, but that's what's on my mind. That's what I'm feeling, and if you listen to the music, I hope you enjoy it too. So thanks for checking this out. I appreciate it.